So, most of us are in college now, and the topic of school starting too early doesn't apply for all of us. This class starts at 9:30, and hopefully most of us are awake, but even though you have to admit sometimes you still get here and you are pretty tired. Remember back before we could drive, we had to wait outside for the bus while it was still cold, and most of the time when we got to our class and our desk, the sun wasn't even up yet. Those who were lucky enough to be dropped off by their parents maybe got a few minutes of extra time to sleep and to get ready with the comfort of knowing you didn't have to share, at least there, in order that you didn't have to share a seat with someone on the bus. The early morning killed us. You have to admit it. But recently, this past few years, school boards have been taking a look at ways to make sure that their kids were able to handle the mornings and possibly keep them more alert throughout the day. How is this handled, they thought? Starting the school day off later. I live in Kindleville, and I went to the Eastwood School Corporation, and our days would start at 7:45 every morning, with the exception of one day a week being our collaboration, where teachers were able to get together, collaborate on ideas of what was going on with the week, and they would start a half an hour later. So I have seen some first-hand experience of what happens when you start a school day earlier. But we'll get to that one later. And before I state my opinion of what should be done, I'd like to go over a little bit of the facts. Let me state them to you and give you some data so that you will understand where I'm coming from and why I think that, as well as you will start your own opinion on that. First of all, a recent report from CBS News development has come out, and so they went over why this would be a good idea and how it began. And so it says this public school system set up farming was our dominant industry, and most women didn't work outside the home. But now many women do work outside the home, and in most areas farming is not our dominant way of making a living, which leaves a lot of kids, latchkey kids, which meaning kids get home before the parents do at work and they do have a key to get into the house, which is where that term comes from. A lot of women are struggling to arrange flexible hour work schedules, and industries can't allow that. So kids were already up with the rising of the sun, and were just able to go to school when their chores were done. And now really that isn't the case unless you live in a more rural area, and women, mothers, can't always be home when their kids have to go to school if they would have to move it hours back. But one of the main reasons why they want to move the hours back is so teenagers can get more time sleeping in order for them to stop falling asleep in class. A recent idea of this comes from the University of California Sleep Study from Sarah Mendick that says scientists have discovered that older kids would go through what's called a sleep phase delay, a shift in their internal clocks that makes them fall asleep later and then wake up later. Most teenagers can't physically conk out until after 11, but still need to be up before 6. And scientists say that under 5 hours of sleep would be an effective form of torture. But from few studies shown the schools who have tested the delay in the day by at least 1 hour have found that the attendance has improved, and students were late less often, my apologies, and they were generally more alert. According to Psychology Today, a news report showed a recent study in a private Rhode Island high school showed that shifting the start time from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. increased the number of students getting 8 hours of sleep. The night went from 16% to 55%, which improved in attendance and resulted in fewer visits to the students in the health center. Moods improved were also noted among the students, and perhaps most dramatic was from a school in Fayette County, Kentucky, which rated, after changing start time from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., a decrease was found in car accidents from 16 to 18-year-olds in Fayette County School District. Rates actually increased in the rest of the state for 17 and 8-year-olds. So, in any topic, you do have the pros, and those are the pros, but we have to take a look at the cons. Any topic that you bring up, most people have a con with it. It can be disruptive to parents' work schedules. It shortens time for after-school activities such as sports and clubs. I know when I was a junior in high school, I was in marching band, and sometimes practice didn't get over until 9 o'clock at night, which that would push back due to the longer hours of school days, which would happen if you started later. And also cause them to get home later in the day. It might also impact the hours available for after-school jobs, not only for students, but also from teachers who have to have a second job in order to make ends meet. Also with bus schedules and family transportation for both parents as well. The idea for starting the school day later, as I mentioned before, is so that teens can have more sleep. But the thing is, if you move back to high school times, you also would have to do the same thing for middle school and elementary school so that the bus arrangements can go the same thing. And when that happens, you're lengthening the transportation time for bus so that more kids who would not be able to ride the bus because their parents took them would be on the bus, and it would lengthen the time amount so kids would even have to get up early in order to get the bus. So kind of doesn't work on that able. And then parents who would want to watch their kids get on the bus safely would have to be at work. So they're leaving their child to stand up in the bus in the morning, and kidnapping rates from other sources could climb because there's no one there to watch them. So after seeing this, what is my opinion? Honestly, in high school, I would have loved for the school day to start later. I love the extra amount of sleep, but the cons just outweigh the pros in this, which is hard to say, but it does happen. Even though it would do a lot of good, it would be more of a pain to run everything off balance. Parents with young children might be able to make sure their kids got to school safely, and then those who drove them would have to put them on the bus, which would lengthen the times, as I mentioned before, and make them last longer. The school day would run longer, which would interfere with teens who have jobs and those who belong to clubs and sports, and kids from both categories of schools would get home later after homework, family time, and relaxing time. All of that would get pushed back so that the students were staying up later. And I know if you stay up later, you're gonna sleep in more. So honestly, it really wouldn't matter. And like I said before, when I went to East Nova and had collaboration days, we started half an hour later, there were still kids falling asleep in class. I was one of them, I have to admit that. And then even the attention rates weren't as high. We would still have the kids who would be listening to their iPods and their Zooms back in the back of the class not listening. So, but ultimately, it really wouldn't help. And so, even with sleeping, teenagers sleeping too late, you can ask any person who's babysit and try to get a kid to a 10-year-old in bed or try to get them up. It will go through any age. So just focusing on pushing school days back to focus on one generation for teenagers, it just wouldn't help. So in conclusion, the schools need to stay the same. Even though I would love to sleep in a little bit, the cons just outweigh the pros. So, thank you.
Thank you.